Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming to this session of HerStory. It's a series of meetings that we have every month with remarkable women and what they can share with us and what we can get inspired with. So we have today the very exceptional lady, Maria Hadjipavlou. She's a professor, and her main effort has been reconciliation and peace, first of all in her own country and also around the world. She has a very rich experience and a very interesting life, which we want to share. We want her to share with us. So the floor is yours, Maria. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Zoe, and thank you for the invitation, and also for this remarkable series, HerStory, and giving spaces for women's voices and experiences to be heard from around the world. So good evening to all the participants and to everybody who will stay with us this evening. I'm wondering why our stories matter. Why my story? So I want to answer this question by saying that in feminist literature, we value individual experiences and everydayness, because they are valid sources of knowledge. Experience as an analytical tool helps us understand the complexity of our life's events, which are interlinked to our collective self. Feminist theories emerge from and respond to the lives of women. Listening to women's stories and voices, studying women's writings, and learning from women's experiences have been very crucial to the feminist reconstruction of our understanding of the world. So think who really wrote the history of the world. And where are women there? So I think feminist literature has promoted this understanding of women's experiences in terms of developing new knowledge and also through that new policies. So women's personal narratives are, among other things, stories of how women negotiate our exceptional gender status, both in our daily lives and also over the course of a lifetime. Women's experiences, however, are not all the same. They are heterogeneous, because we position ourselves in relation to multiple structures of power, class, race, sexuality, age, and locations. There are, of course, differences among women and must be recognized. There are also, of course, threads of connections and shared experiences transnationally. This builds the possibility to relate with the other, and this is where our story, my story, may transcend the local. As Zoe said, I have traveled in many, many countries, and I have experienced this heterogeneity of women's experiences and stories from Afghanistan to Libya, to Northern Ireland, to Israel, to Turkey, to Greece, to Cyprus. So there is a plethora out there of women whose voices we need to promote as well as their work. I think we put the first slide, Zoe. I have prepared a PowerPoint, and I will try and go through these quite fast, so we have time to engage in conversations. Okay, I put this title, The Feminist Value of Women's Stories, My Story, which of course refers to all the women's story, and as I explained already, the value of it. Next. Now, who am I? I think this is a very difficult question and very easy question, because all of us wear different hats. But the who I am, I think I'm trying to locate it in terms of where we come from. As we say, the place where we were born very often defines our beliefs, our values, and also multiple factors that engage our life in the political, in the cultural, and also in the social realm of the place that we come from. I will first show some maps to locate my origin, okay, where I was born. Next, and then we go back to this slide. Now, here is a map of my island, Cyprus, taken from a world atlas. And it's in the Eastern Mediterranean, okay? It's a place, however, at the crossroads, as you see, of Asia, of Europe, and of Africa. So what do I want to say here is that the geopolitics and the strategic position of a place has a lot of meaning and significance in terms of its history, which in Cyprus, it goes back to the second millennium, to the 9th millennium BC, as archaeologists have told us. Now, for many, this geopolitics has also been, according to many authors, a blessing and a curse for Cyprus. A blessing in the sense that it's located in an area where great civilizations flourished, but also a curse in the sense that everybody vied for Cyprus. They all wanted to land on Cyprus. So we had many masters coming in and out of the island. And this, of course, created a multi-civilizational and multicultural Cyprus. Next. Now, this is a map. Again, you can see here Cyprus being very close to Turkey, very close to Athens, Ankara and Athens. In the Middle East, Lebanon, Syria, Israel, Egypt, Jordan. So sometimes, you know, I read maps where they locate Cyprus in Europe, sometimes in the Middle East, sometimes in between. So this becomes also very political. Where is the island located? Now, I put this map because the story and the politics, especially the recent history of Cyprus, is very connected to Turkey and Greece, or Ankara and Athens, and their relationship, and how this impacts the communities living on the island where the Greek Cypriots are of Greek origin, and the Turkish Cypriots are of Turkish origin from the Ottoman period, and the Greek Cypriots, it goes back to the 3rd millennium BC. So where does Cyprus belong to? To whom does Cyprus belong to? I would say to its people, but it's been a discord between also Turkey and Greece for a long time. So the population of Cyprus are 80% Greek Cypriots, 18% Turkish Cypriots, and 2% are Maronites, Latins, and Armenians, also who lived on the island for many generations and also many centuries. So this multi-communality of the island, when we have a conflict, it freezes this richness, and it's either or Greek Cypriot or Turkish Cypriot. Next. Now, my story, I was growing up I was in the elementary school in the 50s. So I experienced the British colonialism. The island, after 3 centuries of Ottoman rule, was given to the British, and the British were on the island, have been on the island from 1878 until 1960, when we were given independence. So I was in elementary school when British colonialism was in Cyprus, and I remember very well what was happening in our education, and also in the first efforts of Greek Cypriots for liberation from the British, or what we call the anti-colonial struggle. So when I put there nationalism, ethnic nationalism, and in Cyprus, we had 2 competing nationalism, one Greek Cypriot and the other Turkish Cypriot. The Greek Cypriot ethnic ideal was to unite with another country, not for independence, our motherland, Greece. And the Turkish Cypriots were asking in their demand for partition of the island. Half goes to Turkey and half to Greece. And the interested parties, Britain, Greece, and Turkey, decided to grant independence with the provision that the British would hold 2 sovereign bases on the island. So militarism, what do I mean by militarism? Today on the island, you will see a slide. We have 7, I think we can move a little bit to see here, yes, put this one, Zoe, thank you. Here I put some of the dates that are contested in the 2 communities, except 1960, which we all agree there was a reluctant independence, or an independence that did not meet the aspirations of the 2 ethnic nationalisms, which, as I said, was competing. This independence, which was a bicommunal republic, independent republic, was to share power between the majority and the minority. By 63, we had, in the December of 63, we had a constitutional crisis, and unfortunately, by 64, the first division of the island was experienced. Turkish Cypriots thousands left the mixed villages and the coexistence that prevailed until then, and they moved into enclaves. So the Turkish Cypriots experienced displacement, something that the Greek Cypriots will also experience a decade later. Now, another important factor from this slide is that the UN, the problem of the discord of 1964 was taken to the UN, and since then the Cyprus situation of problem or conflict has been on the international community's agenda since then. So it's now, how many, 61 years. The UN peacekeeping force is still on the island, and the first division of the island is completed in 1974 after a coup d'etat and Turkish invasion, or peace operation as was experienced initially by some of the Turkish Cypriots. Now, the de facto partition kept the two communities in the first time in their history apart. So there was no communication between the two sides. So what we did was, during that period when meetings and face-to-face interactions were not allowed, we were able, through the help also of third parties from abroad, to establish contacts across the divide, across the red line that you see there. And we started dialogue, okay, amongst the different groups. And by 1997, and this happened before the opening of 2003 that I have there on the slide, we had over 70 bicommunal groups that were meeting, from teachers, from environmentalists, from architects, from academics, and so on. And 2003, this has been our wish come true of direct contacts, that the opening of the checkpoints along the Green Line are allowed people to cross to and from. Now, this was hailed as a big success of people's desire from below. So some of the articles in foreign press talked about a revolution from below. We can discuss what happened to this revolution from below, why the two political elites and leaders did not utilize this big dynamic from below and relate it to the bigger peace process or peace building process and so on. Two more dates. The referenda in 2004, unfortunately, was defeated. The Greek Cypriots voted no to this UN plan, and the Turkish Cypriots voted yes, for different reasons. Each community voted and in this way. So we had no solution. However, a week later, after the referendum, the Cyprus Republic, South, enters the European Union as a member. So what did this mean? It meant that the Turkish Cypriots were considered to be citizens of the Republic. So they could also have the right to a European passport or to a Cyprus Republic passport with which they could travel anywhere in Europe. And a few months later and years, thousands of Turkish Cypriots have applied for this right as citizens of now a European member of a European Union. This gave us a big opportunity to open up our work now face-to-face contact. Crans-Montana was the last effort in 2017, and since then it's been a deadlock in the official peace negotiations. We had a new leader in the Turkish Cypriot community who unfortunately promotes a view for a solution which is in opposition to the position or to the plan for a bicommunal, bizonal federation. So now we are at a stage where there are two competing visions for a solution. So we are at impasse. There was a meeting recently in Geneva, but it was, and the leaders agreed for 4 confidence-building measures. So next. Now here, when I said about Cyprus, as you see here, there are 7 flags. I don't know of any other place where we can see so many flags. Okay, the British are still here. So in my view, decolonization has not been completed in Cyprus. And there are 6 armies: the Turkish army, the Turkish Cypriot, the Greek army, the Greek Cypriot army, and the UN, and of course the British. So that is why in my analysis I talk about how nationalism, militarism, and patriarchy sustain each other. Next. Now, one of the things that are here, again, it's a map where Cyprus conflict is considered to be one of the longest frozen conflicts, one of the most protracted, deep-rooted, and unresolved conflicts. So you can imagine a lot of theses have been PhD theses have been written on this conflict to this day, as well as much research, both locally and from outside. Now, I want to go back, Zoe, to the second slide, just to say a few things about my work in patriarchy. Now, what I mean by patriarchy, we all have to understand this as a system, how we organize ourselves in a society, okay, in a hierarchical way. And patriarchy usually is the system that separates people, okay, instead of connecting them. So very often in my life, I have resisted a lot of these kind of authority structures which I felt they were undemocratic, as well as challenging binaries, us and them, and also not leaving spaces for women's or other marginalized groups' voices to be recognized and also to be valued. So in a patriarchal system like Cyprus, the male voices dominate, as well as the polarization. And polarization, I mean us and them, the good ones and the bad ones. So this gives a lot of space for exclusive and selective narratives to be used in the mainstream, both in education and also in the media very often, or by political parties. And again, through this patriarchal system, it separates people. It doesn't engage them in various forms of dialects, of dialogues. Now, how did I get involved into conflict resolution and contact theory or the needs theory or multi-track diplomacy? Just 3 sentences. I was doing my PhD in Boston in the 80s. And I met, and by chance, I was outside Lemon Library at Harvard, and I saw a poster announcing a meeting between the Israeli Knesset members and PLO members. And I thought, and this was in 1983, I thought PLO in the elite school, you know, how come this? And I inquired whether I could attend this meeting. And that was, for me, the defining moment in the meaning I was looking for at that time, how to apply a lot of my theories into practice and dialogue. So what I saw happening in that room, which was facilitated by Herbert Hellman, a Jewish American professor of Harvard, and a Palestinian professor, American professor, the dialogue. And after that, I knew what I wanted to do back in Cyprus. Therefore, I got trained by this professor, who became my mentor, the reader of my dissertation, and also a long-term supporter of the work of the Palestinian and Israeli contacts. Now, peace building and gender equality, again, these are interlinked. We cannot have peace without also gender equality, because having gender equality reinforces participatory democracy. And also it opens up many spaces for utilizing all the talents in our societies. Now, let's move now to 3 slides, because I think time is... now, the goals of the peace building and the conflict resolution workshop in Cyprus, they had 2 broad goals. One of them was education. How do we change people's rigid prejudices about the other, and also about the historical trauma that each community was brought up or was engaged to, and to stop the intergenerational transfer of trauma. So on the one hand, we had this educational goal, and on the other hand, we had a political goal, which is how do we transfer the changes that occur in the room, in the contacts, and in these joint ventures of people who have not seen each other or who have very different views of the other. So I worked a lot with the concept of reconciliation, which in my view, it is a capacity. You know, reconciliation, we have to learn it. It's a process to reach the other. And also feeling empathy with the other, that's where I think the shift begins, because you don't legitimate or negate your own pain or your own identity, but you open a space to see the other's pain as well. So this has been for me one of the guiding goals or principles in my work. And of course, living separate for so many decades, mistrust and fears are other levels of engaging in these dialogues and in these processes of peace building. And unless we come to recognize each other's humanity, we cannot acknowledge the joint hurts that we occur to each other. And here I must make clear, I talk about the micro level, okay? I'm not talking about the bigger international aspects of the problem, because conflict resolution as a field gave voice to the individuals and the groups. And also we say that conflict resolution and a conflict does not concern only the states or the diplomatic community, but also the societies who are impacted directly by this situation and these conflicts. Therefore, there is a lot of room, and this is where I've been working at this level, at the societal level, because there's a lot of work to be done at this level. Even, I believe, if we reach the best agreement, but the society is not reconciled, is not ready for the solution, the agreement will not last very long. Next. Okay, I also already spoke about these goals when I first started in the 90s till nowadays. And the political aspect, which I didn't mention before, is how do we sustain these changes that occur in these dialogues, in these joint projects, in this communication, on direct and so on, and transfer this to the bigger social environment outside, but also to track one, to the decision-making level, to our leaders, because a lot of, I've been in this for over 40 years, 42 years, a lot of knowledge, a lot of ideas, a lot of material has been produced by these different, and today we have 120 NGOs and organizations working very closely in various aspects of life and of the issues under negotiation in Cyprus. And therefore, this knowledge and this information and all the research that is being done now on contacts and the impact of contacts across the divide can be of great information to the negotiators, the third parties, and also to the leaders to understand the changes that are taking below and relate them to the to their negotiations agenda. Next. Now, 5 more minutes. I want to talk a little bit about the gender work that we do in Cyprus. As in every patriarchal society, women have been totally hidden from Cypriot history. We still need to write the feminist history of the island. The contributions of women to the culture, civilization, the creativity of our island, and bring all this into the education curriculum, because as Vasiliadou says here, you know, and it's hidden, maybe some names, but without any visibility of their contribution. The other aspect that I've been very much involved is, where are the women in the negotiations? According to 1325 and the work we did as gender advisory team, the 1325 promotes the participation of women at the negotiating table and also in the peace building processes. And to have, for me, not women there just doing all the background work, but on equal status with men. And in the Cyprus case, we see that the women have been absent again, and those women who are in working groups or technical committees, and myself, I'm in the technical committee of gender equality, which has most women and 2 men. All the others, the women are very, very few. So again, this inequality reflects also the kind of understanding of the different issues. Next. The impact of separation, I think I mentioned some of these characteristics of a culture of conflict and what do we do. And here, this is where we use the multi-track diplomacy. Imagine the culture of conflict like an iceberg. At the very top are the positions of the leaders, and then the different levels below the iceberg until we reach the bottom, which are the historical grievances and the trauma, and then there are the needs, and then there is the dualism and so on. What do we learn from this image? We learn that there are different points of entry into breaking down this iceberg, this culture of conflict, and gradually transforming it into a place of reconciliation and also of issues that will engage the creativity, but also the vision for a reunited Cyprus. The other aspect that the resolution and also women's work in Cyprus has done is how and let's go on. Next. Here I put some of the groups. Yes, move, just the names of different groups. Here are some of the positive elements in the early work of contacts and how people experience this process and the changes they have experienced, but also coming together, what it meant for them and so on. Now we move on. Yeah, a few things, 3 things about the gender advisory team, which is founded in 2009 by academics and grassroots activists. I believe that knowledge is also produced not only in the academia, but also by NGOs and activists. So working together, the one informs the other. And therefore, this group has done from the beginning a lot of important work. I was a co-founder, and we still work on integrating the gender equality provisions in the peace negotiations. We are the only group, this is the only group that is focusing on this specific issue based on the implementation of 1325. Next. Yes, okay, I think I said this. Also, it's very important to look at the research that has been done when women are not part or they don't feel part of the peace process, then women research has shown in Cyprus they are more skeptical than men in their approach to the peace process, and also they distrust the leaders because, as we will see in a few photographs, the leaders are all male there, and also they believe that so there is a lot of work to be done at the women's levels as well. So we ask different questions, when we look at the Cyprus conflict or any war from a feminist or women's perspective. Are women's experiences of conflict different from men's? In what ways? Do women have a different voice than the mainstream dominant discourses? Do women in conflict societies respond to militarism and the violation of human rights differently? And also, do women define the issues of security and peace differently? Next. So these are some of the questions and the obstacles to Cypriot women's participation. I think these we see in many societies, their historical, their political, structural, and ideological factors. Next. One of the strategies, and this might be important for some of you, that we use this gender advisory team to really promote more holistic change, but also build dialogues and connections between the different levels, the one being with decision makers. So the recommendations, which we published in 3 books, in Greek, Turkish, and English, we discussed it with decision makers, with the negotiators, and with their advisors. And the meso level, we also work with the teams of the negotiators, the UN good officers in Cyprus, and of course the diplomatic community and other international NGOs, like PRIO, for instance, it helped us at the beginning. And of course, the micro level. We go to the NGOs, women's NGOs locally, regionally, peace groups, etc. So this has been our strategy of connecting and working at all these levels. Go on. Okay, this is our latest research, which was to unify women's voices for social and political change. We just finished it, and a report has been issued. I can send it to anyone of you interested. And the idea was to form a women's coalition across the island. Next. Okay, my final thought is that peace building and reconciliation are multi-track and long-term processes and entail the participation of both men and women, and is paramount importance to prepare our societies for a solution. Next. Peace and gender equality are interlinked. Peace is too precious to be left to men alone. I wrote an article for a journal once with this title. So never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed people can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has. And what do we do to now is for the future too. Thank you. And I think we go through some of these things. So when I talk about patriarchy in Cyprus, aggression, and this is the checkpoint and the consequences of the division in Cyprus. Cypriot women is 63. How pain and suffering also is feminized, okay? This is the women and relatives of the missing person. This is Hands Across the Divide, my other group, that we go to mixed villages to listen to each other. This is the crossings that I spoke about, the revolution from below, people mixing. Yes. Here it was a meeting of the religious leaders. No, let's go on. And the future in a reunited Cyprus. This is the work that is being done also by many of my former students. Here, women's activism in the street, demonstrating for peace. This is our work as GAT at the meso level and diplomatic community. Go on. This us talking, and this is with the Secretary representative in Cyprus. This was a regional, very important regional conference we did in the buffer zone on 1325, and we invited women from the MENA region and some in Europe. Our work has got in Berlin, in Strasbourg, where we went. And this is the work we do with Latin community of women, with Maronites. Go on. Yeah, the committee when we went to in Strasbourg. Yes, and that's it, I think. This is when during the, yeah. So people united in a country divided. So the power of people, again, we need to utilize more and more. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Maria. Thank you for this very substantial presentation. So now we have a little more than 10 minutes.
Only?
I'm sure there are a lot of questions.
I'm so sorry.
I will open the floor to anyone who wants to ask any questions.
Maria, I have a question. It's maybe a kind of a stupid question, but when you meet from the Greek Cypriot side with the women from the Turkish Cypriot side, what language do you speak?
Yes, this is the thing. We use the lingua franca English.
Yeah.
Now to learn each other's language. This has been one, I think, of the dividing forces in our education system. And it was in the Constitution as well. There were no common courses or common programs in our education system from the very beginning of the establishment of the Republic. So we now, of course, one of the things we are promoting is to learn each other's language. And so we use translation. Now, the other thing we did to overcome this problem was to train facilitators in their own language. So we have facilitators who do work in the Greek Cypriot groups and facilitators in the Turkish Cypriot group. Mm-hmm. So, and then we bring them together and we use, of course, translation in the English. We try to translate all our documents in both languages.
Yeah, thank you. Any other questions?
In the chat are questions.
Yeah, yes, I see many. Okay. Yeah. Oh, we see from Caroline. Thank you very much, Maria. I consider your story of so many levels, including your personal reconciliation process in working with the wife of the leader of Northern Cyprus, a remarkable model. Could you describe that part of the process in more detail? Yeah.
my work with the Turkish Cypriot. Well, yes, Mrs. Akinci and I go back many, many years. And we have actually initiated the Women's Women's Initiative for Peace, Greece, Cyprus, and Turkey, where we brought together women and youth from these three countries. Because as I mentioned at the beginning, you know, whenever we have bicommunal work, then Greece and Turkey, of course, come in as other interested stakeholders. And so this was something that Mrs. Akinci, Meral Akinci, the wife of the former leader of the Turkish Cypriot community, who was very pro-solution, pro-reconciliation, and also support our work, and encouraged. And for 19 years, we had been working together and doing this work with the youth as well as with women, and also on issues of violence, gender-based violence in both communities.
And Caroline continues, would love to have more information related to insights about the concrete difference that women do make in peace processes, advocacy, talking points.
Well,
that's your field, Maria.
That's my field, and it's and I can send some articles on this very thing. But anyway, research has shown that in all the negotiations and also as signatories of agreements reached where women are present, both in the negotiations become more inclusive and more representative, as well as the agreement lasting by 15 years longer than if there were only male negotiators and signatories. And the other thing is that women's presence in the negotiations bring in, I think, perspectives that usually are not at the table. I just give a very brief example on the issue, for instance, of security. In Cyprus and in many other negotiations, security is viewed through the state-centered approach, okay? Which means in terms of guarantees, in terms of military, in terms of defense, and so on. Women will complement that. I'm not saying it's not important, but women's perspective would complement that by bringing in human security, human-centered security, which means to do with everyday life, with women's social rights in education. Do we have enough budget for good schooling, for good infrastructure, and also for reconciliation, for trauma centers in the post-conflict situation, and so on? So this, I think, and in many, many other cases of the issues, women, and we have produced alternative and complementary recommendations, especially on the issue of citizenship, because today we are not, Cyprus is very multi-communal, and Cyprus demographics have been changing. So by saying Greek Cypriot and Turkish Cypriot is not representative of the realities around us. So how do we define citizenship in a more also inclusive way? And in many other also situations. So women, I think, with the gender consciousness and with the women's agenda sitting at the table can make a very big contribution, which will benefit the whole of the society, but also democracy, democratic processes, and also lessening the violence and the competition outside.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's all inclusive. One society cannot walk with one leg. A person cannot walk with one leg. So men and women just go together. It's not a matter of one being better than the other, but
they can complement each other.
they
So
can complement,
as long
absolutely.
as women's agenda is not at the table, I think this is an omission of democracy and so of depriving, all this richness of ideas and of new, I think, of new solutions.
Mm.
Of what?
New solutions, you were saying.
New solutions. Yeah.
I have a question myself for you. Okay, now because I was there, as you know, we met a few days ago. What happens now after this meeting with between the two leaders in Geneva? How do you see a substantial future? Because at some point, something has to happen. Otherwise, it doesn't work. What's the role of women now?
Yeah, and personally, we welcome this meeting because it was a meeting amongst all the stakeholders. There were representatives from EU, there were representatives from Greece, Turkey, and UK, and Greek Cypriot and Turkish Cypriot representatives, leaders there. So I think it's very positive. Under the facilitation on the good offices of the Secretary General. Now, the outcome of that is that both sides agreed to open up 4 crossing points, which, as I mentioned before, people to facilitating confidence building and also people-to-people contacts. We need more spaces now for people to be crossing to each other. It's not enough, but something, I think, if we think that these contacts have really smoothed out misperceptions, prejudices over the years, and also a lot of joint thinking and joint projects on all issues, from the environment to the sports, to the theater, to the arts, to political views, and so on. Now, and research. Now, the other thing that came out of the Geneva, and we hope that it would be for a substantial meeting in July between the two leaders. So the Secretary General announced that he will send a representative to Cyprus to prepare the ground for more meaningful meeting in July. This is one opening and a hope that might generate more mobilization from below. Because in my research, I know, and many others, we noted that when there is movement at the macro level, at the negotiations going on, and there is hope, then the dynamic from below is much more hopeful, but also meaningful to participate in their own way and so on. So there is a lot of work that continues to be done with women, and a new group of Women's Coalition has also been formed a few weeks, 2 months ago. So there is more and more dynamic from the women's groups coming up now. And hopefully the macro level will be responsive to these desires and dynamic from below, and legitimate these contributions as well.
Sure. Thank you. Yeah. Any other questions? I see some faces, new faces in our club, in our group. But I'm sure there are many questions from many people. I think we have, this is Mr. Paul says, just a question, if that can be rational one, can the United Nations be supportive of women's equality? And if yes, how?
Well, I mean, we had on the whole good relations with, especially with some of the UN representatives in Cyprus who were women. They supported our work. They gave us also visibility. And as I showed in one of the slides, we met with the Secretary General's mediator in Cyprus and so on. So I think they can do more in the sense of promoting 1325 and the direct or indirect pressure on the two leaders to comply with this resolution, i.e., welcome women at the negotiating table. Okay, as a technical committee, we produced an action. One of the things we promoted, and this was under the UN, the Secretary General had asked the committee to produce an action plan, which the leaders agreed to. And at least we put 30% of women to be at the negotiating table. And this was so many, and this has not been realized yet. So the UN can really, yes, help us more on this. Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, it's already 1 hour. Thank you very much, Maria, for this so diligent presentation. It was really great joy, and for me particularly, it's a great joy when somehow the issue of Cyprus comes into more international view, because people know about the different conflicts in the Middle East, which are of course way more strong and bloody. But if it is, even if it's not a hot conflict, actually the Cyprus situation is something that is wearing out the humans.
And in closure, I would like to express my solidarity, our solidarity to our sisters in the Gaza, and also to all the women and children who have senselessly lost their lives in the marching war that goes on, and also to the victims, to the hostages and the victims of those families. And it has impacted us in Cyprus very much as well. So we are with them and in solidarity, and we hope we can stop the wars and turn our societies into more meaningful, peaceful conditions of normal life.
Thank you. I see one last hand being raised by Althea. You need to unmute so we can hear you, Althea.
There we go. I'm muted. Hello. Thank you very much. It was very, very informative. I'm glad I'm here tonight. I'm from Vienna, Austria, but Greek, born in Canada, grew up in the States. And I was in Ayia Napa just, how long ago? October 23. And it was my first time in Cyprus. And I must say I'm very, in German, angetan. I really love the Cypriot people. And I really connect with them very, very well. And I founded the chapter of the Daughters of Penelope in Vienna a year ago. And we were at the AHEPA International Supreme Convention in Larnaca last year in July.
Right.
It was a shattering experience. It was unbelievable. The emotional experience was unbelievable. The history that I learned, the people that I got to know. We were also at the presidential palace. I'm learning more and more. I'm glad I'm here because I come into contact with politicians very often, and I'm able to speak about this. And you mentioned also the word conflict, and this is something that I don't really like that word because it is an invasion of a country. There is the only separated
That's right.
Hauptstadt, capital city in the whole entire world, and it's a European country. So, and people are basically the feeling that people have in Austria is that it's the Turkish side and it's the southern side, the Turkish and the Greek side. And I even know people who have vacationed in northern Cyprus who live here. And I got really upset. I said, "How can you fly there?" And they said, "We didn't. We flew to Turkey and then from Turkey over to Cyprus." Now I found out that that's not legal for Europeans to do that. And she says, "It's a free world. I can vacation whenever I want." I said, "Well, then go to North Korea or something." I don't know. Of course, you can't compare the two. Do you ever think that there could be a peaceful solution to this, that eventually, I really like the way you think, and I like the things that you said about understanding the whole, I took my notes here, how to solve situations like this, and you have to accept the pain of both sides. I know I've learned I have a lot of Cypriot friends now, so I know the pain of the Turkish people that were displaced as well, not just the Greeks on the island of Cyprus. And you said at the very beginning that it belongs to the people of the island. The country belongs, and the people that were originally Cypriot, which were basically both for a long time. I've heard this over and over again. It's just, do you think that we will see in the next 10 or 20 years some movement in that direction, some serious movement? And which position or which influence does the United States have on this? As you can hear, I grew up in the States. That's why I have this.
Yes. No, I agree.
But I'm very Greek. Greeks in the States are very Greek.
Cyprus actually was in the middle of the Cold War as well, because both USSR and the United States had interest in the Middle East, in the Eastern Mediterranean, and so on. And therefore, we know a lot. Now, today, the situation is very volatile, both globally, but also in the Middle East. I think there is an interdependence here between what goes on in the occupied area and in the Cyprus, or in the north and the south, in the Cyprus Republic. There is an interdependence. If we feel insecure, they will feel insecure.
Yes.
And the issue of security is one of the existential needs of both communities. So how do we address that?
Yes.
That's why I mentioned in the human security as well as the legal or the defense security. Now, the other aspect is that, which is very a big grievance, I think, is the Islamization of the northern part of Cyprus, or of TRNC, the Turkish Republic of Northern Cyprus, which was established in 1983, but according to the UN, is an illegal state. Only Turkey recognizes it. And more and more Turkey is infiltrating, the lives of the Turkish Cypriot community by bringing more and more people from Turkey. But not that is, I think, most what is alien to the Turkish Cypriot culture is that they're very secular, whereas now, there is a wave of Islamizing, many parts of the life in the north as well. And there is a lot of resistance from teachers, from the schools, curriculum and so on. So I believe it will be a win-win situation for both Greece and Turkey and the region and the people themselves to have an accommodation, a solution. And the federal solution that has been discussed for many decades, I believe, could solve the basic needs of both peoples. The thing is, how can we build a trusting relationship between the leaders?
Yes.
To this moment, I don't see that happening.
Oh.
Yeah. So we'll see with Trump now and all these new global restructuring of what is democracy and what is happening in Turkey might also be an opportunity for more action on the ground in our problem.
Yes.
Yes.
I am informed that 1974, when the coup happened and the invasion happened, that all the documents proving the Pondian genocide disappeared out of Washington.
Really?
Relatives there, and they lived through it, and the papers just disappeared. And so there is no proof of the Pondian genocide, or very little, not enough to substantiate that. But yeah, but the papers prove, or not just papers, but all the evidence of the Armenian genocide were kept in Germany, and they were found and they were tried, and then it's proven.
Yeah.
But the Turkish genocide to the Greek Pondians disappeared during the invasion from Washington. So this was a thing that really hit me.
Yeah.
You know, being a Greek and also being an American, it hit me very hard.
This is
a
unbelievable.
lot of pain when we get into the past. There's so much pain in between us. I'm Greek as well.
Yes.
And of course, there's so many things I can hear from my parents and everything.
Yeah.
I think one thing that we need to hope and to be convinced that it will happen, if it is something that can be a win-win situation, like Maria said, if something that really benefits humanity, at the end it will happen. It may seem sometimes not so clear, so hopeless, but out of that hopeless is probably great hope that can come out.
Yes. We all need to participate in this. Thank you so much.
We are so late. We are 12 minutes late, but it is very.
But it was worth it. Thank you very much.
Very much worth. Thank you very much to everyone for being here, and I hope you enjoyed it. I realize maybe many more could have come, but because this link I sent, it didn't work. But we will have a recording soon, and I will send it to everyone. And I don't know if Maria allows me also to put your in your email, so people, if they want, can communicate.
I'm willing to share some of my articles or work of other people and so on. It would be great to start a different conversation as well.
Okay, and I hope we can see everybody again in another meeting and with another subject. Thank you. Thank you very much for everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, Maria.
Thank you very much.
You.
Yeah. Hard work. Very good.
Thank you.